Tom Hanks stopped filming in the middle of a critical scene. The director had pushed the crew through 18-hour days for 3 weeks straight. When a lighting technician collapsed from exhaustion, Tom walked off set. He didn't go to his trailer. He walked straight to the craft services table, sat with the crew, and said nothing. What he did next left the director speechless. It was February 22nd, 1999. The temperature was 42 degrees, and the most powerful man on the $150 million set was about to learn who really runs a movie. This is how it happened. It was the winter of 1999 at Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California. Stage 16, one of the largest sound stages in Hollywood. Tom Hanks was deep into production on a sprawling period drama with a budget north of $150 million. He was the sole reason the film had been greenlit. His name on the poster was worth $50 million in pre-sales alone. The air inside the soundstage was thick with dust and artificial fog. Fluorescent work lights hummed above half-built sets. Coffee cups were scattered across every surface. It was the kind of set where you could feel the exhaustion before anyone said a word. Tom had just come off Saving Private Ryan . He'd won back-to-back Oscars. He was, by any measure, the most bankable actor on the planet. Studios didn't just want Tom Hanks. They needed him. And Tom knew it. But Tom never acted like he knew it. He showed up early. He learned every crew member's name. He brought donuts on Mondays. He asked the grips about their kids. That was Tom. The director was a man we'll call Malcolm Briggs, mid-40s, British, sharp cheekbones and sharper tongue. He'd directed 2 critically acclaimed independent films that had won awards at Cannes. This was his first major studio picture, his first $150 million budget, his first time working with a star of Tom's magnitude, and he was terrified. But Malcolm didn't show fear the way most people do. He didn't shrink, he controlled. Every camera angle, every line reading, every minute of every hour on that set. He believed that great art required suffering. He said it constantly. Pain is the price of perfection, he told his assistant director on the first day. He said it like a philosophy. It was actually a warning. 87 crew members worked on that production. Gaffers, grips, sound technicians, costume assistants, set dressers, hair and makeup artists. The invisible army that makes movies possible. They'd signed on because Tom Hanks was attached. They stayed because they needed the work. The first week went smoothly enough. Malcolm was demanding but professional. The days were long but manageable, 12 hours, 13. Nothing unusual for a major production. But Malcolm had already decided how this shoot would run. And Tom had already started noticing things. Small things, quiet things, things that were about to become very loud. It started on day 8. Malcolm pushed the call time forward by 2 hours. The crew, already arriving at 5 a.m., now had to be on set by 3 a.m. No explanation was given. No overtime was discussed. Malcolm simply sent an email at 11 p.m. the night before. Adjusted call time, 3 a.m., non-negotiable. The crew showed up. They always show up. That's what below-the-line workers do. They don't complain. They can't afford to. Tom arrived at 3:15 a.m. He noticed the dark circles under the makeup artist's eyes. He noticed the gaffer, a 58-year-old man named Ray Whitfield leaning against a C-stand with his eyes half closed. Tom said nothing, but noticed everything. Malcolm, meanwhile, was energized. He paced the set, barking orders, reviewing storyboards, demanding perfection from every department. At 9 p.m. that night, 18 hours after the crew had arrived, Malcolm called for one more take. The first AD, a veteran named Chris Weber approached Malcolm quietly. "Malcolm, we're at 18 hours. Union rules say—" Malcolm cut him off. "Union rules are suggestions. We stop when I say we stop." Chris opened his mouth, closed it, walked away. That should have been Malcolm's warning. It wasn't. By the second week, 18-hour days were no longer the exception. They were the rule. Monday, 18 hours. Tuesday, 19. Wednesday, 17. Thursday, 20. 20 hours on set. The crew was breaking down. A costume assistant fell asleep standing up while pinning a lapel. A sound mixer's hands were shaking so badly he couldn't hold the boom steady. Drivers were falling asleep at the wheel of studio vehicles in the parking lot at Wrap. Tom watched all of it. He started doing something unusual. Between takes, instead of retreating to his trailer, he sat with the crew. He ate lunch with the grips. He brought coffee to the electricians. He asked them how they were doing, not as a celebrity, as a colleague. They told him the truth. They were exhausted. They were scared. They couldn't say anything because Malcolm had made it clear anyone who complained would be replaced by mourning. "Pain is the price of perfection," Malcolm repeated at every production meeting. "If someone can't handle it, there are 50 people waiting for their job." Chris Webber, the first AD, pulled the line producer aside on day 12. "This can't continue. Someone is going to get hurt, or worse." The line producer shrugged. "The studio loves the dailies. Malcolm's untouchable right now." Chris tried one more time. He approached Malcolm directly after a 19-hour day. "Malcolm, the crew is falling apart. We need to cut back to 12-hour days." Malcolm didn't even look up from the monitor. 12 hours is for television directors, Chris. I'm making a film." The tension was building. Everyone could feel it. Everyone except Malcolm. It was 2 a.m. The crew had been on set since 4 a.m. the previous morning. 22 hours. The soundstage smelled like sweat and stale coffee. Half the crew was running on energy drinks and cold pizza. Tom was watching from his chair. His jaw was tight. His eyes were tracking the crew. A young lighting technician named Danny Reeves, 24 years old, 3 months into his first studio job, was adjusting a 5K tungsten light on a scaffolding rig 12 feet above the stage floor. His hands were trembling. His eyes were glassy. Tom saw it first. He stood up from his chair. Malcolm was behind the monitor, obsessing over a shadow in the corner of the frame. "Danny, adjust that key light 15 degrees left. Now!" Danny reached for the barn doors. His foot slipped. He fell, 12 feet, straight down. Why his body hit the concrete floor with a sound that silenced every person on that stage. 87 people froze. Danny was conscious, but barely. His left arm was bent at an angle arms aren't supposed to bend. His face was white. A medic rushed over. Someone called 911. Tom was already kneeling beside him. He took off his jacket and placed it under Danny's head. He held the kid's right hand. "You're okay, Danny. You're okay. Stay with me." Malcolm walked over. He looked down at Danny on the floor. He looked at the pool of spilled coffee next to the fallen light. He looked at his watch. Then he said it. The sentence that ended everything. "Get him off my set. We're losing light." The room went dead silent. Tom's hand was still holding Danny's. His eyes lifted slowly toward Malcolm. Then Malcolm made his fatal mistake. Malcolm crouched down next to Tom, not to check on Danny, to talk to his star. "Tom, we can shoot around this. I need you back on your mark in 5 minutes." The kid signed a waiver. He knew the risks. Tom said nothing. His face was unreadable. Malcolm straightened up, adjusting his scarf. He turned to the crew, clapped his hands twice. "Everyone, let's reset. Scene 47. I want cameras rolling in." "Malcolm!" Tom's voice was quiet. So quiet that the people at the back of the stage leaned forward to hear. Malcolm turned, half smiling. "Tom, I know this looks bad, but—" "A kid just fell 12 feet. Malcolm waved a hand. "He's fine. The medics are handling it. This is a film set, Tom. Things happen. Pain is the price of—" "Don't." One word. Tom said it without raising his voice, but it landed like a hammer on glass. Malcolm blinked. His smile flickered. "Tom, I understand you're upset, but we have a schedule to keep. The studio? The studio isn't here, Malcolm. I am." Malcolm's confidence cracked for just a moment. Then he pulled it back together. He straightened his shoulders, crossed his arms. "Tom, with all due respect, you're an actor. I'm the director. I decide when we work and when we stop. That's how this works. That's how it's always worked." Tom looked down at Danny, who was being lifted onto a stretcher. He watched the medics carry the kid toward the stage door. He watched until Danny was gone. Then he stood up. When Tom Hanks finally spoke, his voice was calm, absolute, final. Tom looked Malcolm directly in the eyes. "Let me make sure I understand. A 24-year-old kid just fell 12 feet because he was too exhausted to stand, and you want to keep shooting." Malcolm nodded, defiant. "That's exactly right. We're 3 days behind schedule, Tom. Every hour we waste costs this production." Tom said 5 words. "Then we don't work either." The soundstage went silent, not quiet, silent. The kind of silence where you can hear the electrical hum of the lights above. Nobody moved. Malcolm laughed. A short, nervous sound. "Tom, be serious." Tom didn't blink. "We don't work either." Malcolm's face changed. The smug confidence drained away like water through a crack. Tom, you can't just... You have a asterisk contract asterisk. You're obligated to sue me. 2 words, said simply, without heat, without drama. Malcolm looked around the room, searching for an ally. 87 faces stared back at him. Not one of them looked sympathetic. The first AD, Chris Webber, had his arms folded. The line producer was studying the floor. The key grip was shaking his head slowly. Malcolm turned back to Tom. Tom, if you walk off this set, I will call the studio. I will have you call them. Tom was already turning away. He addressed the entire crew. His voice carried across the soundstage. Calm, clear, warm. Everyone go home and get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow at a reasonable hour. He looked back at Malcolm. If there's a tomorrow for you. Nobody waited for Malcolm's permission. One by one, the crew began putting down their tools. Headsets were removed. Lights were powered down. Cables were coiled. The exodus was quiet and orderly. No drama, no shouting. Just 87 exhausted people finally given permission to rest by the only person on that set who had the power to give it. Malcolm stood in the middle of the darkening soundstage watching his crew walk away. You can't do this! His voice echoed against the empty walls. This is my set, my film! Tom stopped at the stage door. He turned one last time. It was. Then he walked out. The heavy stage door closed behind him with a metallic thud that echoed across stage 16. Malcolm was left standing alone under the work lights, the monitors still glowing, the cameras still mounted, a half-dressed set stretching out in every direction. His set, his film, his vision, empty. He stood there for 12 minutes. 12 minutes waiting for someone to come back, waiting for someone to tell him it was going to be fine, waiting for someone to take his side. Nobody came, and what happened next would follow Malcolm Briggs for the rest of his career. By 6 a.m. the next morning, the story had reached the studio. Tom made one phone call, not to his agent, not to his lawyer, to the head of production at the studio, a man he'd known for 15 years, a man who owed his career to Tom Hanks Films. Tom didn't ask for Malcolm to be fired. He didn't make threats. He simply described what had happened, the hours, the exhaustion, the collapse, the director's response. Then he said, I won't come back to a set that treats people like that. That was all it took. By 9 a.m., Malcolm Briggs was summoned to a conference room on the Warner Bros. Lot. 3 studio executives were waiting. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. Malcolm was removed from the production. The studio released a carefully worded statement. Due to creative differences, the production will continue under new direction. Creative differences. Hollywood's favorite lie. But the immediate embarrassment was nothing compared to what came next. Within a week, the story had spread through every agency, every studio, every production office in Los Angeles. The details traveled fast. The 18-hour days. The collapsed technician. Tom kneeling on the concrete. The 5 words. Then, we don't work either. It became a phrase. A rallying cry. Crew members whispered it to each other on sets across the city. Malcolm tried to control the narrative. He gave an interview to a small trade publication, Synod, calling Tom difficult and unprofessional. He claimed he'd been fired for artistic ambition. Nobody bought it. 3 directors who'd previously considered working with Malcolm quietly withdrew their interest. 2 agencies dropped him from their preferred lists. A planned development deal with a major streaming platform, before streaming was even mainstream, was shelved permanently. Meanwhile, the production continued with a new director. The film wrapped on schedule, under budget, with 12-hour days and mandatory rest periods. Tom insisted on one additional change. Danny Reeves, the lighting technician who fell, was kept on full salary during his recovery. Tom paid for it personally. He never told anyone. Danny's mother found out 3 years later and wrote Tom a letter. He still has it. The short-term damage to Malcolm was severe. The long-term damage was permanent. 2 years later, and Malcolm directed a low-budget independent film in Eastern Europe. It went straight to video. The reviews were brutal. One critic wrote, Briggs directs with the warmth of a man who views human beings as expendable equipment. He tried television, a pilot for a cable network. It wasn't picked up. He tried commercials. A car company hired him, then fired him after 2 days when the crew complained about working conditions. The pattern had followed him across the ocean and into every format. By 2005, Malcolm Briggs was teaching a film seminar at a community college in Surrey, England. His IMDb page hadn't been updated in 3 years. While Malcolm was disappearing, Tom Hanks was ascending. He starred in ***Castaway**, earning another Oscar nomination. He He launched Playtone Productions with Gary Getzman, producing Asterisk, Band of Brothers Asterisk, Asterisk, My Big Fat Greek Wedding Asterisk, and Asterisk, The Pacific Asterisk. He became not just an actor, but a producer, a creator, a force. By 2004, Tom Hanks had earned over $1.2 billion at the worldwide box office. He had 2 Oscars, 5 Golden Globes, and the undying loyalty of every crew member who'd ever worked with him. And Malcolm Briggs? Nobody remembered his name. Years later, in a quiet interview with Asterisk Vanity Fair Asterisk, Tom was asked about difficult moments on set. The interviewer referenced the incident without naming Malcolm directly. Tom's answer was characteristically brief. Everyone on a set matters. The person holding the boom mic is just as important as the person in front of the camera. The day you forget that is the day you don't deserve to make movies. That was all he said. He moved on to the next question. But those who were there tell a more detailed story. They talk about Tom kneeling on the cold concrete floor, holding Danny's hand. They remember the sound of the stage door closing behind him. They describe how his voice wasn't angry. It was asterisk, disappointed asterisk. And somehow, that was worse. Somehow, that was devastating. To this day, pain is the price of perfection, is something you never say on a Hollywood set. It's become shorthand for the kind of director nobody wants to work with, the kind who sees crew members as tools rather than people, the kind who confuses cruelty with vision. And to this day, crew members who were on stage 16 that night still talk about those 5 words. Oh, then we don't work either. Not, I won't work. Not, I'm calling my lawyer. Not, you'll hear from my agent. Asterisk, we. Asterisk, Tom Hanks, the biggest movie star in the world, put himself on the same level as the gaffer. The grip, the 24-year-old kid lying on the concrete with a broken arm. That's the part people remember. Not the confrontation, not the firing, not the aftermath. The asterisk, we asterisk. Malcolm Briggs is remembered, when remembered at all, as the man who thought he could grind people down and call it art. Tom Hanks is remembered as the man who proved that decency isn't weakness. It's the most powerful force on any set, and it always will be. If this story of moral courage moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that protecting others is never a sign of weakness. It's the ultimate sign of strength. Have you ever stood up for someone when nobody else would? Have you ever been the person someone stood up for? Drop your story in the comments. Because the world doesn't need more people with power, it needs more people like Tom.